Hey everybody, it's Root Beer. The Thursday stream brought us new Jewels Knight support, and if you remember from BCS, I actually play the deck, so let's react to it. So, if you didn't know, there's going to be a new series of cards featuring like old Limit Break archetypes. So on Tuesday we had Musketeer, which I'm not going to talk about because I don't play the deck and don't know enough about it. And then today we got Jewel Knights, so we have Salome, and if you don't remember the Limit Break version, I don't blame you, that was forever ago. But when it attacks, if you have 4 or more rearguards with Jewel Knight in their card name, it gets 2k and a crit, and it is 10k base, because this was still a thing when this card came out. And that is a Limit Break 4 ability, so it's only active when you have 4 or more damage. And then it has an act ability that is not once per turn. You counterblast 2 Jewel Knights, search your deck for 1 card with Jewel Knight in its card name, call it a rearguard circle, and shuffle. Next we have Evangeline, so this was the Stride support like way back in 2015. So the original ability was just that you turn up a copy of itself if you have a hard card with Jewel Knight, then and 3 or more rearguards with Jewel Knights, then all of your Jewel Knight units get power plus 3k for each copy of itself face up in your G zone. And they have now errated it to add a new ability similar to the History Collection Strides, where if you have Salome with the Limit Break 4 ability and you didn't get a gift this fight, you can discard cards equal to grade 3 or greater, stride it, and then you turn a card with Jewel Knight in its card name in your G zone face up. You get 2 Force Gifts and the Salome Crest. So what the crest does is, if your heart card is Salome and it has a Limit Break 4 ability, then Evangeline gets all of the original abilities of the heart card, and then you reduce the first time you can pay for the cost of those abilities by Counterblast 2 during the turn it received this effect. Then the original power of your grade 3 with Limit Break 4 becomes 1300, includes heart cards, and the Limit Break 4 ability is active even if you have 3 or less cards. So all of this new support is kind of just okay. Like, I've been thinking about it, and I don't think it's all that much different from what Jewel Knights can do right now in Premium. It feels like more of a side grade than anything. So if we think about like what this could potentially do now, so you have the ability to call anything from the deck for free with Salome's ability, any Jewel Knight for free with Salome's ability, which will become free with the crest. So you can call out Ashley, that gets you another attack. The main thing about that is just, because it's an act ability in the main phase, there's not a ton of ways for you to extend. I believe Ashley can't call herself. In fact, let me check. Yeah, so Ashley can't call herself because Ashley only calls grade 2 or lower cards. So it seems like the ceiling on that is like you use Ashley's ability, call something on top of Sybil, and then Sybil's ability, when you place something on top of it, can call something else. And I believe that also can only call a grade 2 or less, so you can't call another Ashley to kind of keep going. So your ceiling on attacks is like 5 attacks. So you have Sybil, then Ashley, then call something on top of Sybil, Sybil calls something else, then you attack with Vanguard, and you have 2 more rearguards, that's 5 attacks. But the upside to that, even though you have fewer attacks compared to if you were to use Alt Mile, which some Jewel Knight decks do right now, is that because you're copying the original Salome's ability, you have an extra critical on your Vanguard, and then Evangeline's ability gives all of your Jewel Knights an extra 3k power for each face-up copy of herself, so more than likely it's going to be 6k, because you turn up 1 for the gift ability, and then you turn up another copy for her own ability. So you'll have 6k on all of your rearguards, and that does get you to like better numbers. Right now, everything is kind of smaller because of a lot of the Jewel Knights don't gain power on their own, so even with imaginary gifts, so for example, Sybil will only be like 20k, right? If you call something like Alayli with her own ability, it's only going to be 25, so you can push that a bit higher to like 26, 31, and if you're going first, your opponent's still at grade 2, being 25, 26k is a lot better than just being 20 if you were to do like the 5 attack play. So those are kind of the benefits of the new one. If we compare that to what you can do with Alt Mile, if I'm thinking about it correctly, I think you can get up to like 7 attacks if you were to go Alt Mile into Gobblade. So you would have like whatever you start off with, and then you can use Gobblade to call an extender like Ashley or Cataphale, and then you do the same thing where you call on top of Sybil, that gets you 6 attacks. And then if you start off with another extender like Cataphale, then that also gives you like a 7th attack. And I believe that's the ceiling because Cataphale can't call itself, if I remember correctly. Let's check real quick. Yeah, it has to be different card names. So Cataphale can't call itself. So I believe if you start off with an extender like Ashley or Cataphale, and then go through your combo where you attack with Gobblade, call another extender, use that to keep going, then you can like cap out at 7 attacks. So that's kind of the difference between the two of them that I can see is like Gobblade, you get more attacks, but the numbers are a little bit smaller and you don't have the crit on Vanguard. Evangeline, you have the crit on Vanguard and the extra power, but fewer attacks. And then another thing is that you don't have to play the Alt Mile engine. So both of these kind of have a problem where you need to find the right cards in the right order, right? Because, you're playing the old Salome, but that has the same name as the V version of Salome, which is currently the win condition, right? You ride V Salome, so you have the restand ability, then you can stride into Crystal Luster, copy the restand, and then you have that on top of the Battledore effect. Plus, V Salome has the ability to give the extra drive. So you have like a quad drive restanding Vanguard, and then you're also getting a bunch of extra rear guard attacks, and that's just a ton of pressure that puts an end to the game. But I think both of these decks have a similar problem of like, you need to pivot into the V Salome. So the problem with the Crest support is that you now have to play the old one as well, so your ratio of Salomes are a little wonkier now, because you're doing like maybe 1 copy of the old Limit Break one and then 3 copies of the V one, or like a 2-2 split. And even though there are some tools like Christine, for example, can search a grade 3, like you still have to find those cards, and then Christine has the condition that you need to have 3 other rear guards with Jewel Knight in their name. So it can still be a little difficult to like find the cards consistently. And then Alt Mile, you have a similar problem where you can play like grade 3 searchers and things like Suleiman. Sorry about that. Suleiman to like get a copy of Alt Mile if you ride it, but that's more stuff into your deck. So you're dedicating a bunch of extra space to this Alt Mile engine. So, playing the Crest support means you have more room for like pure Jewel Knight support and or like other tech cards that you might want to put into the deck, versus like Alt Mile, you have to play Alt Mile and ways to find Alt Mile. And then you're still in a position where you're going to have to pivot afterwards into either like Ashley or Salome if you wanted to do Crystal Luster plays, or go into Twin Blade, which I think kind of works out the same between both decks. And then another issue with the Crest support is that Jewel Knights are xenophobic. So looking at Salome, for example, you need to have 4 more rear guards with Jewel Knights in their name. So already that takes away options like grade 3 searchers and Cataphale because they're not Jewel Knight names. And, if you're not getting the crit when you use Evangeline, or if you wanted to go into Crystal Luster, what's the point of playing the old Salome, right? I will say that compared to Alt Mile, I think like your plan B is a little bit better, because Twin Sword is the same, but if you wanted to go into something like Crystal Luster, it kind of works out to being the same play as if you were to play Evangeline. You're just trading out the extra power that you gain from Evangeline's ability to the triple door effect. And compared to that, Alt Mile, all it can really do is give some give your front row 5k, which is fine, but it doesn't help with board building. You know, being able to copy the Counterblast 2, it's a bit of a hefty cost, but Jewel Knights don't actually use a ton of Counterblasts in Archetype, especially when you get to that late game. Like, Ashley is a Soul Blast 2 to call an extra thing, so you might be able to spare the Counterblast, and then you still have a crit on Vanguard, you still have the triple door, you're making 4, 2, 5 attacks. Like, that could still be a viable plan B if it's, like, super late game and you couldn't pivot properly, or if you're just, like, making a desperate play. Like, that could be something, right? Whereas Alt Mile just giving the front row 5k and not really having a way to, like, build the board or extend without just naturally drawing into and already having all of the extenders you need, like, that could be a problem. And then, you know, Twin Sword is kind of the same. So, you know, that's kind of the overall thoughts. Is I think it's all fine. There's kind of pros and cons to both. So the pros for the new cards are that you have a crit on Vanguard, which if that connects, you could snowball damage early. Gives you better numbers compared to Gobblade, and you can cut out the Alt Mile engine and just play like pure Jewel Knights, which I'm not sure that you want to do because like Cataphale, for example, is a good extender. And that kind of leads into the cons, right? Like, it's xenophobic, so things like grade 3 searchers and Cataphale that you use for more power or consistency, you can't really play as easily because you're having to think about like the Jewel Knight names for your early game. Fewer overall attacks could mean less pressure, you know? Like, it's hard to say if having bigger numbers and either forcing your opponent to take the hit or guard with more cards is equivalent to having a couple extra attacks. And then, of course, it messes up your ratios of Salome, so it's going to be a little bit harder to pivot because you have fewer copies to kind of draw into. So, yeah, I think that's about it for my first impression. I think it's fine. Honestly, like, I feel like Bushiroad just needs to print more rear guards for this thing. I will say, though, we also got the G-Zone list, and it's not terrible, right? Like, I'm impressed they actually reprinted Harmonix Messiah, and the only real nitpick I have is, like, maybe we don't need the GB8, like, maybe that could have been better as a second copy of Twin Sword or Crystal Luster, but other than that, I think it's fine. Anyways, I hope the main deck reprints Sword Me. That card desperately needs a reprint. Thanks for... my god, I cannot talk today. Thanks for watching, everybody. Bye-bye.